Welcome back to Mindful Chatter, where the focus is Black women's mental health. Today, I want to talk about the Nicole Linton case. For those of you who are unfamiliar, Nicole Linton is the 37-year-old registered nurse from Houston who was on a travel assignment out in Los Angeles when she experienced what's believed to be a manic episode, was involved in a horrific fiery crash and killed 6 people, one of which was an unborn baby. She's been in jail 4 months now, was denied bail, and her family believes she's being treated unfairly. This case is tragic all the way around, and I wanted to talk about it because it highlights exactly how bad things can get when Black women do not acknowledge and properly manage mental illness. I've worked in the mental health arena, and when the story first broke, my initial thought was that she was probably hallucinating, and that's why she barreled through that intersection the way she did. Of course, there was all kinds of speculation about what led her to drive this vehicle at approximately 130 miles an hour and cause the demise of 6 innocent people. But what is known is this: Nicole had a 4-year history of documented mental illness dating back to May of 2018 when she was diagnosed with bipolar disorder, after she experienced what's believed to be a panic attack, ran out of her apartment, and proceeded to jump on top of a police car. She was arrested and charged with disorderly conduct. This is where her family is saying all of this started. I'm not a doctor. I'm not qualified to diagnose anybody, but I don't believe May of 2018 is the first time that Nicole experienced some kind of episode. She was 33 years old at the time, and they're claiming there was no indication whatsoever of her having mental illness prior to this incident taking place. That just doesn't compute for me. Because her family does not believe that she is being treated fairly, they started a website in order to humanize Nicole, tell her story, and advocate for her to receive additional testing and possibly be released from jail and sent to a mental health facility. I read everything that her sister had to say about her history, and this is why I believe Nicole was showing signs of mental illness prior to 2018. Her sister talks about the fact that Nicole used to be a surgical tech and that she had aspirations of going to nursing school. She mentioned that in 2017, she started nurse anesthesia school. Nurse anesthesia is the highest paying, most competitive branch of nursing. So she would have been under a great deal of stress just trying to get into this program. It sounds like she was a very ambitious person and was always setting goals for herself. And her sister goes on to say, after she was accepted, she was going and going, not taking any breaks, and she believes that her sister fell victim to her own drive and ambition. That right there is saying when she was in school in 2017, she was not coping effectively. It sounds like there were already things going on that were showing that, you know what? She's putting too much pressure on herself and she's not able to manage everything that's going on. And I think that because mental illness is so poorly understood, and in our community in particular, we are resistant in many cases to even acknowledging the presence of mental illness, when Nicole was probably, having smaller outbursts, appeared overwhelmed, anxious, and as if she was, spinning out of control or all over the place. That was likely minimized and attributed to her just pushing herself too hard and probably just needing to get some rest. So fast forward to 2018, when she was arrested for disorderly conduct, and the police officer called her sister to come and get her. The police officer said, Nicole is deteriorating right before my eyes. She's babbling incoherently. She's in a catatonic state. You need to come and get her. When her sister flew down there to come and see about her, she wanted to take Nicole to the hospital, and Nicole didn't want to go. She was paranoid and said that she thought they were going to pump her full of drugs. She was distrustful of the nurses and told her sister that in her working as a nurse, that she was always having to quote unquote fix their mistakes. So right off the bat, Nicole was not open to receiving help for her condition, and she was already of the belief that she had everything figured out and that she, basically knew more than the people who would be responsible for taking care of her. Her sister reports that she was checking her blood pressure. She thought her organs were failing. She was asking for a respirator. She was finally able to convince her to go and see a student counselor, and that she was anxious while at the facility. She was pacing, paranoid, ranting, crying uncontrollably, and proceeded to slam her head into a glass partition. She was taken to the ER, and while her wound was being treated, she was sitting there singing, "Don't worry, be happy." The thing that I found most interesting about her sister's account of this particular incident is that she said that Nicole hadn't done anything to indicate that she was a danger to herself or others. So her slamming her head into this glass partition after displaying this extremely erratic behavior wasn't evidence that she was a danger to herself or other people. Her sister mentioned that after this episode took place, the school was willing to let Nicole take a year off, but that she would have to repeat everything and start over, and she was upset about this. This is where I would say that Nicole was not taking the steps that she needed to take to properly manage her illness. Again, the family is saying that there was no evidence of mental illness whatsoever prior to 2018. So if, for all intents and purposes, you were perfectly normal, healthy, and stable, nothing like this has ever happened to you before, you go from that to slamming your head into a glass partition, being extremely paranoid, babbling incoherently, and being anxious. You don't think that this is a time for you to say, okay, you know what? I don't know what the hell is going on with me. I've never experienced anything like this before. Let me go and talk to somebody. Because Nicole is not a lay person. She's a registered nurse. She would have had more access to medical professionals than the average person because medical professionals are her colleagues. Why at that time were they not concerned about having her tested for frontal lobe epilepsy? Why was there no interest in having her evaluated for some other underlying condition after all of these things happened? Before I even read her sister's account of facts, I already knew that Nicole was not on a medication regimen. I've worked in psychiatric hospitals before, and I've seen Black women just like Nicole Linton will come back into these hospitals over and over again because they were not taking their medication. And sure enough, it comes out that during the pandemic, Nicole made up her mind that she didn't need to take no medication. Nicole decided that, simply reducing her stress level and, meditating and engaging in self-care would be sufficient to manage her mental illness. We're way past that. You're displaying this kind of behavior. You need professional help. The unfortunate reality of dealing with mental illness is that you do often have to see multiple doctors, multiple therapists. You have to try multiple medications to see what works best for you. But you have a responsibility to manage your illness. And her sister, again, is painting this picture that because she had bipolar disorder, she could not have reasonably been expected to do any of these things on her own. But at the same time, you're saying that she was well enough to work in multiple facilities because she was a travel nurse, which means that she was bopping around going from state to state. And she also wasn't expected to manage her own illness. That's what being under a doctor's orders means. That you have gone in to see someone. You're not leaning on your own understanding, but you have let them evaluate you, come up with a course of treatment, and you agree to follow it. Her sister said, people acting like she completely ignored her mental health. She received treatment with doctors and did the best she could to otherwise manage her own illness. I'm sorry, but I beg to differ. When you can sit there and say that after she experienced these episodes, she could not focus on her mental health the way that she needed to because she needed to get back to work so she could pay her rent, that shows that she was not doing everything that she was supposed to do to manage her illness. Because after the kinds of episodes that she had, walking around nude, on numerous occasions, multiple inpatient stays, staying up all night cleaning, the paranoia, catatonia. Nicole should have taken a leave of absence. She should have gone to that agency and said, look, I am experiencing a medical emergency and I need to take some time off. That is what she had an obligation to do to get herself together. But instead, she continued to work. She continued to push herself. She continued to manage her illness in the best way she saw fit, which did not include taking medication. And she did not make it a priority to seek out a therapist or a psychiatrist that she felt comfortable with. That's the reality of it. And the thing that is just mind-boggling to me is that her sister said Nicole started taking her health a lot more seriously after 4 episodes. And your solution to managing all of this was for you to reduce your stress. It's too late for that. Her sister was even talking about how after some of these incidents took place that she appeared normal after getting some rest. And of course, I'm not blaming her family for anything because it's not their responsibility to manage Nicole. She's an adult. And unless she's declared mentally incompetent and she's, judicially committed to a facility, which, they could have taken that route and tried to have her placed somewhere involuntarily. But no, I'm not blaming them because Nicole has to be the one to acknowledge the fact that she has bipolar disorder, which she cannot manage on her own. And that's where the danger lies. Many people make the mistake of assuming that you can't be attractive, smart, successful, and also be struggling with mental illness. And that couldn't be further from the truth. Many of us are in denial about our mental health because mental illness does not fit the image that we have of ourselves. We're human, and we live on a planet filled with violence, chaos, and injustice. So it really is bizarre to me that there is still so much stigma and taboo surrounding mental illness. I have depression and anxiety, and I have no problem with acknowledging that. I actually feel empowered because I've identified my struggles and I can do the work to heal, as opposed to pretending that nothing's wrong and depriving myself of that opportunity. I really hope this story encourages other Black women to be honest with themselves about their struggles and get the help they need. What happened to Nicole really is an extreme case. Most of us live with unmanaged mental illness in the form of toxic romantic relationships, getting fired from jobs, falling out with friends and family members constantly, and damaging our children emotionally because we're unable to cope. Too many of us are still out here trying to prove that we're strong Black women and feel that showing this level of vulnerability makes us weak. But it's the exact opposite, actually. You really show strength when you live your truth and are courageous enough to admit when you need help. If you enjoy the content that I produce here at Mindful Chatter, please hit that subscribe button, like, and share this video.